everyone, welcome back to So Arizona. I have been working so hard trying to get my garden ready for spring, and normally in other seasons I have grown my tomatillos in one of my circular stock tanks, and that's because they are such bullies in the garden. They get so crazy and unruly that it was just easier for me to separate them and give them a little space by themselves that they couldn't escape and elbow out other plants. But this year I'm changing the location just because I am trying to make my patio garden where I have my stock tanks a little neater and a little tidier, and those tomatillos are none of that. So I reserved one of my 4x4 in-ground beds for them this year. I'm going to provide some support for them, some tomato baskets or cages, I think, just to try to keep them within the bed so that they're not growing over into the bed next door. But I was thinking actually about a question that I get all of the time from people about tomatillos, and that is, why aren't my tomatillos producing fruit? And usually if I ask this question, well, how many plants are you growing? I will get the answer to why their tomatillos aren't producing fruit, and that is that they're only growing one. And so a lot of people don't realize that tomatillos are considered self-infertile, and that means that you need to have more than one plant to provide cross-pollination for them to produce fruit. So if you have a tomatillo that is flowering like crazy, but it's not producing any fruit, chances are that is what is going on with your tomatillo. And the other day, I was reminded of this question when I found a volunteer tomatillo growing, and I thought, oh, it's a shame to pull it out and to throw it away because it's such a healthy little plant. So I carried it over and I put it into one of my beds, and I carried on with my work. Just yesterday, when I was planting all of my tomatillos that I bought from the Native Seed Search spring plant sale over in that 4x4 garden bed that I was just talking about, and I have 5 of them over there, and as I was planting them, I remembered this poor little lonely tomatillo, this volunteer tomatillo that I had set aside and planted on the other side of the garden. And this poor little guy does not have a friend to grow with to ensure that he's going to be pollinated and produces fruits for me. So I'm going to remove this little tomatillo and I'm going to take it over to the other bed. And I'm not worried about any kind of hybridization happening for next year, because I usually will save seeds, because I always buy the same kind of tomatillo. It's the Toma Verde tomatillo. That's what I grew last year. That's what this volunteer is, and that is what I planted in that 4x4 bed. So they are all matching. But if I move this little guy, I can ensure that I'm going to get fruit from this plant as well as the others, because they have plenty of other friends to cross-pollinate with. All right, so here he is. Look how nice this looks. It looks like the grasshopper has been taking some liberties maybe, but that's all right. I think that it'll be fine. So I'm going to carefully move this. I'm going to dig all the way around it so as not to disturb the roots too much, and I'm going to move it to the other side of the garden. Side note, look at these little parsnips. They are just looking so cute. I think they're going to be ready to harvest soon. So this is the area behind me where I'm planting that other little volunteer tomatillo, and it probably looks like just a little encampment of tents behind me. It has been so hot lately that as I'm transplanting my seedlings out, I've been so worried about them getting transplant shock or sunburns, because it has just been really, really hot. It's a terrible time to be setting seedlings outside, but now is the time, and I'm trying to stay on track. And as you know, as I've said so many times, timing is so important here in the desert so that we don't miss our planting windows. So the show must go on, and instead of just putting them out and letting them take their chances, I'm babying them a little bit, and I'm covering them with some burlap, which I am trialing this year as a substitute for all of the plastic-based shade cloth, which is shedding plastic particles as it breaks down under the sun and in the wind as it rubs against itself. So I don't want to have that in my soil, so that is why I'm using burlap. And so far it's actually going really, really well. I've been pleased with it. But I'm going to take that volunteer and I'm going to put it over here with its other little tomatillo buddies. Of course, there are other reasons that can cause tomatillos to not produce as much fruit as you would like. Just like so many other plants in our gardens, they need good fertile soil, so make sure that you're amending your soil. Tomatillos need at least 8 hours of sun, so they love the sun and the heat, but not too much heat. If you've ever noticed that tomatillos will be really productive in the spring when we're in the 80s or so, and then once it gets above 90, they kind of fall off in production, it's because they, like tomatoes, do not do well and do not set and ripen fruit well when it is super, super hot. So just like I said, timing is everything. We want to make sure that we get the window of time in the spring and early summer, and then again after the monsoon season to plant and grow and harvest tomatillos. So you have to have more than one. You have to have good fertile soil. You have to have enough sunlight and also consistent watering. I'd also like to add that you need to have either a huge space or some support, because they will sprawl and vine. They produce suckers just like tomatoes do. So you can prune them just a little bit if you want to, but normally I don't prune mine. Honestly, I will just let them go. They are also like tomatoes in that wherever the stem touches the ground, they will produce new roots. You just need to make sure, whether you prune or not, whether you add supports or not, that they have enough space, because they will crowd out other plants. And when you have too much crowding, plants aren't productive either. So I hope that this helps you with growing your tomatillos this year. I think that they are a great plant to grow here in the Southwest because they do really well. There are so many different varieties. I am stuck on this Toma Verde one just because it has a very unique, very sweet flavor. It's not as tangy and sharp of a flavor as just a traditional green tomatillo. I've also tried the purple tomatillos, and those are really good too, but my favorite by far is the Toma Verde. And you know, part of what is so great about gardening is being able to have special varieties that are just not available in stores to purchase, and instead you get to grow it yourself. So good luck with your tomatillos this year. I'm Kara from Arizona. Until next time, happy gardening.